So we are live. Hello, everybody. A good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to you based on whichever part of the world you're joining in from. So I'm Rashmi Vaidya, one of the senior strategy mentors at GMAT. Before we begin, if you can hear me or see me, could you please type in yes on the chat box? Okay, great. So, welcome to today's success story session, where we take an in depth look at stories of people who have aced the GMAT so that you can also walk their path to success. Today, we are happy to have Aditya. Hi, Aditya.
Hi,
I know
Rashmi.
you have an interview lined up tomorrow, but thank you so much for making out the time today to do this. So, Aditya here scored a massive 770 with a V49 in his first attempt. That too within a very short time span. He also has outstanding interviews from Kellogg's, UCLA, and has recently completed his interview with Berkeley House. So now he's here to give back to the community and talk about his experience of acing the GMAT and sharing his insights from the journey. So, Aditya, welcome again and congratulations on a great 770. What a score and what a journey it has been. So,
Thank you, Rashmi.
you're welcome. So before we delve into your GMAT journey and how you made it to the top of the GMAT world, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Firstly, you are far too kind. Hey guys, I'm Adi. I grew up in Bangalore, India, and finished my high school there. Came to UCLA to study computer science. I think it was somewhere in my third year in some DevOps internship that I realized I was, more passionate about whys than hows. I was passionate about things like who are we solving this problem for, what problem are we solving, and less in, code or time complexity of a solution. Obviously, it didn't make for a great engineer, but I was lucky, or maybe forged my own luck, to break into product management straight out of school.
Mm-hmm.
And so for the last 3.5 years, been working across different startups in California. And I guess outside of work, I love sport. Chelsea is my team. I think Virat is my favorite person on this planet. When he's playing well, I'm doing well in life. And when he's not, I'm not. So I
So
guess
good
that's me.
that he's back in form then.
I know. We're chasing that 100 and probably will get it.
Yeah, so we have some comments saying Arsenal is the best, but let's get into that in a bit, not now. So, anyways, so you already were in the project management role, in a project management role. So generally people do MBA to get into consultancy, project management kind of thing. You're already there, right? So can you tell us how and why you thought about GMAT, even though you're already in a role that people would aspire to get into after finishing an MBA?
Yeah, I think of course, everyone has their own paths to success and everyone has
Mm-hmm.
their own path to where they want to go. For me, the MBA and therefore the GMAT was, my path to going from product management to being an entrepreneur myself. So I think,
Mm-hmm.
I want to
Mm-hmm.
round out my skills, finance, sales, operations, learn things that I don't get to see in product, and
Mm-hmm.
definitely build leadership and other, entrepreneurial skills from it as well. So that's kind of how I see this journey, but I know things never quite always plan out like you thought. So just excited about that ride.
Awesome. So would really love to look at the kind of enterprise that you will build, and would love to hear about that when the time comes. So okay, you decided to appear for the GMAT. So what were the first steps that you took? Making a decision of appearing for GMAT is one side, but what were the first steps that you took after that?
Yeah, I remember back when COVID first hit, I thought I could, juggle a full-time job and
Mm-hmm.
GMAT. So the first thing I did was bought eGMAT online and I took
Mm-hmm.
my
Mm-hmm.
first mock exam. And that's all I did for that year. So,
Mm-hmm.
shout out
Yeah.
to those who do this like weekends and late nights. Like, I know I didn't have it in me. I tried and failed. So if that's something you're going for, like, incredible. Kudos to you for that.
Yes. I'm sure it takes a different kind of a determination to, balance your career and your preparation. It requires a great deal of focus, but I would like to say even preparing full time is also not easy. Each of the things have their own pros and cons. But that said, why did you opt for an online or a self-paced study? Because a lot of people do self-study for their GMAT. So what made you realize that maybe self-study is not cut for you?
Yeah, I think what I was looking for was, an online platform that's tried and tested.
Mm-hmm,
So, looked at EGMAT, Magoosh, Target Test Prep, and all the lot.
mm-hmm,
I think what stood out to me was this personalized learning, personalized
mm-hmm,
planning. This was even before Rashmi, you joined, or I joined your batch of Last Mile program.
mm-hmm.
I still had,
Yes.
support beyond my imagination. So,
Mm-hmm,
and also, by the way, I have no other GMAT books. I bought no books. I don't know. This was everything I did.
mm-hmm,
And yeah, so I think I got what I was looking for, and that is
mm-hmm.
particularly what I was looking for.
Mm-hmm. So I think it is important to understand where you are at, what are your constraints, what are your requirements from a particular course before finalizing one, right? Because I think
Yes.
it's very important to understand where one is standing and what one must navigate to plan out the journey in an efficient way. Okay, so yes, you took the course sometime last year, couldn't see it through, and then you restarted sometime this year, sometime in October, if I'm right, or was it September? September, I think.
I think it was October 26th because I remember my GMAT was December 28th, and this end-to-end journey was 2 months, 2 days.
Yeah. That comes to the thing that I said towards the beginning of the session, that you made to this massive score in just about a couple of months, which is again truly commendable. So tell me, once you decided that yes, this time I'm going to give it my all, what was the first step? How did you start with your preparation?
Yeah, I think, in a lot of these things, it's how do you break down a large goal into simple,
Mm-hmm,
achievable tasks? So for me, it was I wanted a GMAT 750. So I knew, like, that was what V47, Q50. I knew
mm-hmm,
what I was going for. And then subsectionally, what that meant ability level. So 80%
mm-hmm,
ability across verbal, across math.
mm-hmm,
And yeah, kind of breaking down those larger goals into smaller ability level that I wanted to get to.
mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm,
yeah, I think how I started was I wrote another mock. I think I was at
mm-hmm,
700 in my first
mm-hmm.
mock
Yeah.
when I started again. So I knew I wasn't far from where I wanted to be, but I knew that there was still like a big hurdle to climb, especially on the verbal side.
Mm-hmm,
So decided to spend my first bit of time on SC.
mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm,
the reason I chose SC is like I just think it's one of the sections where you either know it or you don't. Like it's nuances and tricks of grammar
mm-hmm,
that perhaps are not intuitive to
mm-hmm,
everyone, no matter how much
mm-hmm.
you read or speak. So I decided to start there, and yeah, I think I spent a lot of time on SC, but it was all worth it, I guess, at the end.
Yeah. But I think going back to your first mock, it was not like you were starting at a real low ability in SE. You were still decently, moderately good in SE. But what was it that made you want to do the entire course? You know, can you just
Um,
explain the rationale behind this?
Yeah, I think, despite being a native English speaker and a decently avid reader, there
Mm-hmm,
was just tricks that stumped me, or like I said, were
uh-huh,
not intuitive to the way I spoke.
mm-hmm,
I think there's like I said, topics, rules, nuances, like I don't know, the perfect use of past perfect tense or verb ing
mm-hmm,
modifiers showing the result of an action, or parallelism and imperfect parallelism. And if these words don't make sense to you, you definitely should be going to the course because they did not make sense to me either before. So
yeah. So from there to what your final score on SE was 99 percentile. Both of us looked at your ESR and we're like, wow, it's mind blowing, right? So can you give us some insights as to how you got there? It's okay, you did the whole thing, but to get to that 99 percentile requires a different kind of, I think, prep or what. Can you give us some insights into that journey to that 99 percentile in SE?
sure. And you might hear me say this a lot through the session, but I think it was a process thing. So I was following, the EG Mat meaning based approach, which basically
Mm-hmm.
meant that before you go and put on the grammar lens and go correct sentences, first just
Mm-hmm.
read about what is the overall meaning of the sentence. For example,
Mm-hmm.
I would see something like, okay, some plan was passed in the, like, I don't know, 1970, and then some changes happened. So you get like a timeline perspective, and then you can apply
Mm-hmm.
the rules of grammar after that, saying, okay, if two actions happen in the past, the earlier one is past perfect and the one after that is past tense, and just
Mm-hmm.
things like that. So I think, really trying to use that first reading of the sentence to imbibe just the meaning
Mm-hmm.
was key. And then I'll give you
Mm-hmm.
another thing I did, which was when I would analyze the question itself, which a lot of times, you'd see a mistake and you'd skip
Mm-hmm.
past and see the answer that fixed it or rectified that mistake. I think
Mm-hmm.
I changed my approach to spend, a good amount of time and cautiously find every mistake in option
Mm-hmm.
A. Even if you find one or two or three, I would, make sure I found them. And I think what happened here is that seemingly extra time you spend on an
Mm-hmm.
incorrect option, even if you know it's incorrect, does help you pick the later ones as well. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember you told me this one trick that GMAT sometimes is not about finding the right answer, but finding four wrong answers. So
Yes.
yeah, I think that was key.
So, so tell me, time-wise, as you because you do mention that you spent a tad bit more amount of time reading and analyzing the question or the sentence. Did it have any bearing on the final timing that you took to solve a question in SE?
Um, no, I mean, the untrained eye would tell you there's five options. If you want to do this in 2 minutes, what is that? 240 seconds divided by five, what, 48 seconds per thing. So I think what I look at this is just focus on option A itself, every single mistake
Mm-hmm.
in it. And it gets much easier to then breeze through, like, okay, that's definitely wrong, same mistake, or that's even worse than the first one. So I don't know, I would say maybe spending even 40% or a whole
Mm-hmm.
minute on just option A was like the key
Yeah.
to, yeah, picking out mistakes in the other options easier.
True. So you now like have a mini checklist of the errors that you're looking for in the answer choices too,
Yep.
right? Awesome. So I know that you maintain a very meticulous error log. Can you give us a brief into this process and how it helped you?
Yeah, and the only reason I had that is because you forced me to do it. So kudos to you for that. But no, I think, the process of reviewing a question, especially if you got it wrong, odds are you're going to
Mm-hmm.
get some flavor of that wrong again in the next one. So really
Mm-hmm.
honing in on why was I wrong in this, like something, some rule was going against your intuition, and that's why you got that question wrong. So spending maybe
Mm-hmm.
3 to 5 minutes after you are done with the quiz was the
Mm-hmm.
key. And then the error log for me, yeah, it's the output of the strategic review. But for me, I think the review itself was key. I've actually had some
Mm-hmm.
students reach out to me like, hey, can you send me an error
Mm-hmm.
log? And
Mm-hmm.
I told them, like, I can definitely send you mine. You can see how to write it. But the whole point of the error log is, to learn from your own mistakes. Where is
Yes.
your intuition different from GMAT correct grammar? And I think that's where the error log really comes in.
Yes. I think, yeah, error log is a self-diagnostic tool. You know,
Mm-hmm,
uh, the sense that I make out of my error log, it's not necessary that you take the same learnings out of it. So it's
mm-hmm.
highly personal, but I think truly insightful.
Yeah, I had
So
like 200 entries in my error
mhm,
log by the time I was writing the exam. And I would actually
mhm,
like review, even before doing like a small quiz, I would review maybe the last 10 or 15 entries. So,
mhm,
that's
mhm,
my starting point. These are the mistakes I was making yesterday, and
mhm,
try to go from there. And I think another
mhm,
thing I did, and maybe, this is another helpful tip, is when your error log grows too large, like I said, 50, 70, 100,
mhm,
um,
mhm,
can you summarize the patterns of mistakes? So, like for
mhm,
me, things like versus as, or due
mhm.
to versus because of, some like little nuances that I just kept making the same mistake. I would make a separate cheat sheet, I guess.
Mhm,
Eventually,
mhm.
that cheat sheet became my Bible that I would like read in the morning or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yes, I remember seeing your cheat sheet in one of our calls, and I could see how meticulous you were with that. And that is sort of, I think that also acts as a sort of a summary sheet just before the test. It's just a completely distilled version of all your learnings, if you may.
Yeah, and I'll
So
say it again. I think, as valuable as the sheet was and the log was, it's not even close to
mm-hmm,
the process of writing the cheat sheet or making the error log. Like
mm-hmm,
the learning, I think I had all my learning in incorrect questions and how I dealt with them. So yeah, I would say, like, if you guys, do a quiz, you get questions wrong, don't just turn off your laptop
mm-hmm.
and go away. That's, it's fun to do that. But really the rigor and the learning comes from like, okay, I just got these 4 questions wrong. What am I going to do about it now?
Yes. I think there's a great amount of learning to be had in the questions that you get incorrect, because there's a reason why you got them incorrect. And if you are able to identify that and work on it, then you'll never make the mistake again, right?
I don't know about never,
And
but yeah, you can hope so.
hope so, right? That is the hope. And I think that is what gets you to that 99 percentile.
Hmm.
So yes, SC was done, and I think then you moved to RC, because I remember that your RC performance in the first mock wasn't really great. So if you could tell us, what were the challenges that you faced in RC to begin with?
Yeah. So like you said, I always had a hard time with RC reading comprehension. I think my starting ability was like 50th percentile,
Mm-hmm,
ended at 96. So I think after conquering, I can tell you that my take is it's not that hard. These questions are not difficult if you were to do it on time. I
mm-hmm,
truly believe that, if you spent the time, read the passage, you're not on a clock, you'd get every or almost every question right. The way the GMAT makes it hard is they do long and convoluted sentences. You have a clock
mm-hmm,
to play against, and then they'll pick some unfamiliar field of study from, I don't know, humanities to astrology or something like that. So, yeah, I think the trick is how do you read fast but well, and finding the right balance between when do you go back and reread a previous sentence, when do you just give up and move on because you didn't understand.
mm-hmm,
Well, the answer to that is never give up and move on because you didn't understand. um yeah, so I think it's really a speed versus comprehension kind of balance
mm-hmm,
that you need to look for. And again, I think it's a personal, um yeah, it's a personal process for everyone. Some people might read,
mm-hmm,
a certain way. Some people might just need to read each sentence twice, but it is worth that time.
mm-hmm,
Because again, like I said, that initial time you spend on reading the passage, it'll come back and pay off. And when you're doing the next 4 questions, you don't even have to go
mm-hmm.
back to the passage because you
Yeah.
truly immersed yourself in it. You understood the content. You became an
Mm-hmm.
astrologer for the day or whatever for those 10 minutes. So yeah.
So, was there any Achilles heel kind of a stuff for your RC? Because I know that some students just can't, figure their way around humanities passage, or some of them find economics passage really difficult. So, did you have anything like that?
Honestly, anything long was my Achilles heel. So I think,
Mm-hmm,
yeah, of course, there's certain passages that came easier to me. Like if it was in the field of science or physics or something like that,
mm-hmm,
I probably wouldn't even need to read the passage because some of this is what I've
mm-hmm,
studied in engineering. But I will say that, if you fight it or if you go in with that mindset that, oh, it's going to be hard for me and you're not interested, it's not going to work out. You won't be able to like
mm-hmm,
walk out of there knowing the content.
mm-hmm,
But if
mm-hmm,
you go in with this mindset that, okay, I'm gonna like feel what the author's feeling, really understand what he's saying, even if it's boring or just not fun for you, that's
mm-hmm,
that's the difference between, being able to read fast and well. So
mm-hmm.
yeah, I honestly don't have Achilles heels. Whether you have them or not, tell yourself you don't. Um, yeah.
That's a great insight. The moment you think this is a challenge, then your mind tries to tell you, okay, let's skip through this or skim through this. But the moment you say, okay, this is just right up my alley, then I think it's a mind game, end of the day,
Mhm.
telling your mind that yes, you have it in you to read through it consciously and be able to answer the questions, right? uh, so Aditya, what's your take on note taking for RC? Because some people say it has to be detailed, some people say it has no note taking kind of a stuff. So what's your take on that?
My take on this, and actually I should have said this right at the start, is it's game changing. It's vital to
Mm-hmm,
crystal clear understanding. I think when you attempt to write notes, you have to summarize what you just read, paraphrase it, and therefore it forces you to understand it.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you with certainty that when I didn't do notes versus when I did do notes, the difference was stark.
Mm-hmm.
Initially, I used to write very detailed notes, essentially, one little line for every sentence I read, and it was time consuming and tedious.
Mm-hmm.
I found myself spending 6, 7, even 8 minutes on passages, and that's not possible on the actual exam. So
Mm-hmm.
my advice here is like, first build accuracy, first build your process, go write notes,
Mm-hmm.
do it on time. Like I said, go get that flow of, how do you read? When do you go back and read? Write your notes as well,
Mm-hmm.
side by side, and then attempt questions. You'll see that your accuracy will go very high up. And then once you do that, start putting the pressure of a clock on. Try to do it faster than you
Mm-hmm.
did last time. And you
Mm-hmm.
yourself will find your balance between how fast is too fast, how detailed is should your notes be, use a bunch of abbreviations. At the end of the day, like, the notes are only for you. You could all in all avoid it altogether. But I think the
Mm-hmm.
process of trying to write the notes is key to understanding the passage. It's not the notes itself that'll help you. It's the fact that you tried to
Mm-hmm.
write it. So yeah.
Yeah. So maybe it's like paraphrasing what you just read through note taking. So
Yeah.
you're sort of, imbibing what you just read,
Yeah, and I
right?
think initially I would, write things like, okay, the author is saying this is a good plan because economic benefit, I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
unemployment will be reduced, this will happen, that'll happen. And I was literally rewriting that every time. And then I
Mm-hmm.
realized, like, towards the end, my notes were just like, oh, good things will happen when this plan is passed. Like, I think
Mm-hmm.
that's the level of notes eventually I found.
Mm-hmm.
um
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So I think it was more than notes. Maybe it was a summary of what you just read.
Yeah.
Is that where you came down to?
Yeah, I don't know. For those of you who are familiar with this section already, there's something called a main point question, right? Which is like, what is the main point of this whole passage? So my purpose, or the way I would write notes, is to answer the main point, which would be like one little snippet. Okay, para one describes the plan, para two describes the context of the plan, para three describes the benefits of the plan. So overall, I'm just
Mm-hmm.
looking for one, main point that summarizes the entire passage. And in
Mm-hmm.
trying to do that, I would, yeah, set up my notes that way. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you can always go back to the passage. It's not, it'll be on the side of your screen when you're taking the exam. So it's, you don't have to do it. But yeah, I think if you guys just try this out with a few passages, you'll see a accuracy
Mm-hmm.
difference for sure. And eventually
Mm-hmm.
you'll see you're spending more time, but that's where like you build with practice. And first get your
Yeah.
accuracy, then get your time down.
That's beautifully put. I think it's first important to do things the right way and then try to be efficient about it.
Hmm.
Right? Because if you try to do both of them together, then somewhere I think there are gaps which don't allow you to build your ability to a certain extent. So yeah, that's what gets you to a 96th percentile, I think. I'm just throwing percentiles like, 99th, 96th, 94th, but that is what the score is all about. Uh, so, so now coming to CR, you did really well in CR in the first mock. Uh,
Yeah, I think my
but I,
first two were really
hmm,
good. Some 88th, 89th percentile starting out
uh-huh,
ability. And I think I always enjoyed just, logical deduction, reasoning,
mm-hmm,
basically arguments, right?
mm-hmm,
Um, my friends will know this all too well, but I love a good argument. So I think
mm-hmm,
I came at a good starting point, but the real key was like this almost mathematical process I would follow. Like, every CR question, I'm doing the exact same way. And, I can go into that in a sec, but
mm-hmm.
essentially the difference between, being good at something walking in versus, again, some 96th percentile was just following this like process.
Yeah. So, what made you want to, given that the first two mock scores were good, what made you want to take the step of unlearning what you were already doing and learning a new technique?
Because I think I did a third mock, or just
Mm-hmm.
not a full mock, but a third test where like my CR ability went to 42nd percentile. So I
Mm-hmm.
knew
Mm-hmm.
that, a small deviation from what I thought was easy, or anything goes wrong, that's how
Mm-hmm.
far I could drop.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I was like, okay, I do need to give it the same amount of structure and
Mm-hmm.
time and process and effort that the
Mm-hmm.
other sections got. even though I started what I thought at a decent level.
Yeah, and with literally the deadline approaching, you decided you will do the entire CR, and I think you did, sort of internalize the pre-thinking approach. And if you could just tell us how this particular process changed your approach towards CR questions.
Yeah, sure. I think, first things first, you got to understand the passage. This isn't like RC where it's long. It's just max maybe two, three,
Mm-hmm.
four sentences. So I used to look at it after reading the prompt. I would say, okay, so the author is saying this plan will improve exports for X, Y, and Z reasons, despite the critics' reasoning that it won't
Mm-hmm.
happen that way. So I would look at a passage and say, okay, premise, 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 conclusion, opposite conclusion, or whatever. Some, basically like deconstructing an argument into its subparts. And I would look at it that way. And then I would proceed to read the question, which, would ask you something like, what would make you believe or strengthen
Mm-hmm.
your belief in the conclusion?
Mm-hmm.
And where it really helped to break down that is like, okay, you know how the author is thinking about it, his logic, her logic, and how do you strengthen that? Like, what would further your belief
Mm-hmm.
in that conclusion, right? So those are
Mm-hmm.
typically your CR questions, and that's where I think pre-thinking really came in.
Mm-hmm.
I would try to say, ideally, I would even have a specific example, like, oh, maybe, I don't know, like something happened. Like I'm not getting a CR specific pre-thinking to mind right now, but sometimes I actually would be like, oh, if that was the case, I definitely would believe your conclusion a lot more. So I had a
Mm-hmm.
specific example, but sometimes, you couldn't find a specific pre-thinker, as you guys call it. So I think the process of trying to find one, or
Mm-hmm.
just generally restating what would increase my belief that, given that, that's what I
Mm-hmm.
used to call the general pre-thinker. And I think,
Mm-hmm.
again, it's not about like exactly what you pre-thought, but the fact that you tried. And by the way, I still haven't read the option choices yet. I'm only, doing this without seeing the answer choices.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, so you go into the option choices with this mind, with this hat on, that, what would make me believe that more. And that's where it
Mm-hmm.
becomes really easy to pick out the wrong answers. They stick out like sore thumbs. Like four of
Mm-hmm.
them, you'll find easily. Two of them will be straight up against the conclusion, on the wrong direction
Mm-hmm.
altogether. Maybe two of them will be irrelevant to the argument. Um, and how you spot that is by really immersing yourself in the author's logic. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think that's where
Mm-hmm.
understanding the passage, attempting to pre-think, and then seeing the option choices was key.
Mm-hmm. So after that, I think there was no looking back. There were never any dips in your CR performance ever.
Yeah, and I think, I'll take this for life. Like, I have done some CR questions with like, informal tutor or mentoring sessions, and yeah, once I got that process, it didn't leave me. um
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you can't unsee it, basically.
So Aditya, they say learning anything new doesn't come easy. But for you, it was not just learning something new, but also unlearning something that you followed. So how did you go about unlearning and then learning?
Tough question. uh I don't know, honestly. Like, I just had it in my head that do not read the option choices until you've pre-thought. Do not, like, kind of skimp on pre-thinking.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you, coming out of this, like, whatever time you spend, you're like, oh my God, I've like spent a minute on the passage. I haven't even read the option choices, and you're expecting me to spend another 20
Mm-hmm.
seconds.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like a waste of time, but really that time you spend makes it much easier to reject the wrong
Mm-hmm.
option choices. And again, I'll say this, it's especially in, CR as well, just pick four wrong answers. That
Mm-hmm.
really is the key. Picking, trying to go and find the right answer, you will fall for one of their traps. I think CR is like unnecessarily nitpicky in my in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion. So don't fall for the
Yes.
trap of trying to find the right answer. Just find four wrong ones.
Yeah. Because I think if you go about looking for the right answer, every answer choice seems somewhere or other seems
They do.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So awesome. So verbal all done, an upcoming exam, right? Like about what, 10 days away, and there's still a lot of quant to be done. with very limited time, and you were at a Q47 to start with, according to your first mock. So
Mm-hmm.
it was not like, even with the Q47, even with your kind of verbal improvement that you had shown, it was not that you were getting to your dream score. You still had to improve your quant. So how did you do that in this limited amount of time that you had left? How did you manage that?
Yeah. I think honestly, as a engineering student, not much of it was like new to me in terms of content. I'd done these word problems. I know the rules of divisibility and
Mm-hmm.
remainder. So I was like, yeah, at a good starting point. I think what I looked to build through the learning or through the GMAT, eGMAT course was the process. Like I say this so often,
Mm-hmm.
but really this is just a process sort of exam. I would, try to watch like how instructors were
Mm-hmm.
attempting when they read a question, they would be like, oh, that's a snippet of information, that's a snippet of information. I infer that from it. They visualize it sometimes on a graph. So I think for me it wasn't the content gap that I had to fill, but a process I had to strengthen. And that's really
Mm-hmm.
where the course came into me. And yeah, to go from that Q47 to Q49, I think I didn't learn much more. I just started applying a rigorous like
Mm-hmm.
mathematical
Mm-hmm.
process to the quant questions.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Uh, I think yes, but number properties was the Achilles heel in verbal. Sorry, in
Oh yeah,
quant, right?
I conveniently left that out. I I did not enjoy number properties. Things like prime numbers always stumped me, and yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
spending. I guess my advice here is like you know yourself best. Take mocks. Expose yourself to enough general questions so you know where to spend time. For me, it
Mm-hmm.
was number properties. For you, it might be something else. So yeah, I think spend that extra time to diagnose where you're strong and weak and put
Mm-hmm.
the effort accordingly.
Mm-hmm. So Aditya, it's really amazing that you had very limited time with you to cover all this vast portion up. But then one thing you definitely did not skimp on was strategic review and error log.
Hmm.
I remember this one conversation wherein you said if you spend about, X amount of time solving a question, you spend 2 to 3 X amount of the time reviewing this and building your error log. So, how did this approach help?
Yeah. Honestly, similar to what I said with SC, but in quant, if you're getting a question wrong, there's something either logical that you're doing wrong, or there's a gap in your concept. And the only way to really plug that is to spend the time. So I used to, I think at the end of the day, I covered less than maybe 20% of all the questions on EGMAT plus
Mm-hmm.
OG. So I didn't really expose myself to so many questions. It was
Mm-hmm.
all I would spend up to 10, 15, sometimes even 20 minutes on a question I got wrong because it was so key to not make that same mistake again.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so the value of strategic review and again error log was just like that's where the score improvement came from. I mean, you can take infinite
Mm-hmm.
mocks and close your laptop like I said, but you won't improve. You'll make the same mistake again. It'll be new numbers. It'll be a different word problem. Um, so yeah, I think really looking at mistakes as learning opportunities, and maybe that's true in life as well, but that was key. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
don't skimp on
So it
the
was a
review.
quantity versus quality stance that you took. You know, I won't solve a ton of questions. I won't take the brute force approach, but a strategic approach wherein I will solve a set number of questions, but make each question count.
Yeah, yeah. Make each mistake count. Like, at the end of the day, all my learnings came from things I got wrong. Because the things you're getting
Mm-hmm.
right, you're going to keep getting them right. Whatever the trick was, you already got it. It's where you didn't
Mm-hmm.
get the trick or you didn't get the trick in time, right? Timing is another aspect of it. So yeah, I think that's where it came in. Number properties was my Achilles heel. It was all like even odd, divisibility and remainders, that kind of thing. Just, I don't know. It seemed like very specific to standardized testing and
Mm-hmm.
not, I don't know, true mathematics in my opinion. But yeah, so that's where I was spending my time. Most of my mistakes came there. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I guess don't be afraid to, you know, spend a lot of time on one question that you got wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Like it
Mm-hmm.
seems like you're wasting time and not covering a lot, but that's where all the improvement for me at least came from.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Uh, I think also, the very fact that you go back, look at it, again put it in the error log, sort of reinforces your learning. And it, when you reinforce your learning, it stays, it doesn't, sort of fall with time.
Mm-hmm.
And kudos to you on having done that, despite, I keep coming back to this again and again, despite the limited amount of time that you had. Because if anything, one would want to skimp on this and, not on the other thing.
Yeah, I
But
think it's tempting. It's definitely tempting to be like, I just want to cover all the questions or as many questions as I can. But if you really look at it as like, it's not about that. It's about uncovering as many mistakes as you can and then fixing them. There's
Mhm,
no point just, seeing where you're weak and not doing much about it.
mhm,
So
mhm.
yeah.
Got it. I think another thing that stands out is how objective you were, about, yes, this is my weak area. Let me concentrate on that. You know, just critiquing where you are at, trying to understand what your weak areas are, and building upon them is again something I think, given the limited amount of time, that was very strategic and really helped you get from where you started out to where you reached, which was the percentile. So, you know, really congratulations on that, persevering and just taking that stance and seeing it through, right?
Hmm.
So, yeah, you've completed all the preparation and all that. So now you're at what, the mock stage? So, how many mocks did you take?
I think you know the answer. I just took just the one mock and I took it um the day before on what, December
Couple of
27th or
days.
something.
Yeah.
Or 2 days before, yeah.
Yeah.
Um and my score, by the way, on that mock was 710. So, it was like I'd done over 60 days of prep and I got a 10-point improvement from where I started. On paper,
Mm-hmm.
that's what it looked like, right? Definitely deflating, demoralizing, all those things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, but the way I look at this, and again, big sports guy, sometimes, you attack well, like in soccer or football, you attack well, but your defenders don't play well. Sometimes you can score 200 runs and the other team chases it down, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's about taking the wins and making sure that all pieces come together. So, I knew that I had done, I don't know, maybe just not up to my level on that mock
Mm-hmm.
a couple days before. So I didn't really let it get to heart. I just told myself,
Mm-hmm.
hey, look, this is what can happen if you let go of your process. This is what
Mm-hmm.
happens if you let the pressure of time get to you and you read
Mm-hmm.
an RC passage too fast. You're going to mess it up. If you don't try to pre-think because you think you're wasting time, this is what happens. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I looked at it as like, you just need to get, at some point, you've got the scores in each section you wanted.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to manifest it on the day in every section. Everything has to go right.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I didn't let it deflate me. I think instead of making me underconfident, it made me more cautious.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Mm-hmm.
am actually glad that the mock 2 days before was 710, because I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh wow, this is what can happen if you don't give it your best or you don't really
Uh-huh.
be conscious or cautious of what you're doing.
But the moment you saw that 710, you must have felt, oh my God, what happened? Right? From there to tell yourself that it's okay. I know that I have put in all this effort. I know the kind of ability that I've built. So let me take a step back. Let me objectively look at it and see where what went wrong.
Hmm.
How do you get to that state? It must not have been easy.
Meditation, I think. I don't know. But yeah, just tell yourself like, you got this. You put, the hours, you put in the input, and sometimes you don't get the
Mm-hmm.
output you want. So, do you have that introspective lens? What did I do differently? And I
Mm-hmm.
remember what I did differently that day, and it was CR that
Mm-hmm.
actually dropped a lot in that
I
mock.
think it was SC and RC.
Really? SCNR? Oh yeah, you're right. It was. It was. I had completely, basically, under the pressure of doing all sections in a time manner, I just left my process behind. I left my notes behind that I talked so highly of.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so for me, it was a matter of like, come on, man, you've spent so long trying to learn this process. Do not let it go on the last day. So
Mm-hmm.
actually, what I did that day between the mock and the actual exam was I
Mm-hmm.
kind of just taught my girlfriend the process, like in trying to
Mm-hmm.
teach her how to do it. Um, I think I hammered it in my own self. And that was it. That was the key. I told myself, going in, just follow the process that you've learned, and everything else will be fine.
Mm-hmm. And did a tiny little voice inside of you say, maybe I'll take one more mock to see, if this helped? Or you just couldn't afford it? That's it.
Yeah, I think I also lived in San Francisco and was taking the exam in Los Angeles. So I had to drive down the last day.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to take a mock before a 6-hour drive. It would just kill me introspecting
Mm-hmm.
and thinking about what went wrong. So I was like, let me take my learnings and focus on the process. I'm telling
Mm-hmm.
you, it was a total process sort of
Yeah.
exam, learning, and yeah, it was all the difference to me.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So yes, I think the process, that whole thing that you told yourself, that it's the process must have worked, right? That is why we are here talking about your insights and your experiences. So yeah, we come to the D-Day. So what was your mindset going into the test? Because it must not have been easy given a not so good mock score a couple of days before that. So what was going on in your mind that day?
Um, I'll say three things. If you see
Mm-hmm.
a RC passage, immerse, immerse, immerse. You're going to be an astrologer for the day, or you're going to be a humanities student for a day, or you're going to be Einstein that day. But, whatever it is, whatever they're going to throw at me, I'm ready. Like, I'm going to give it my best shot. So I think
Mm-hmm.
immerse yourself in those passages. When it came to SC, don't jump to, option B, C, D, E until you really
Mm-hmm.
spend the time on A. So I told myself, like, spend the extra time on option A.
Mm-hmm.
And when it came to CR, it was like, at least try to think of a specific pre-thinker. It's fine if you can't. But again, like the fact that I tried helped me identify the wrong option. So it was like
Mm-hmm.
just telling myself, you do these three things, you'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
And like, quant wasn't always an area of issues. So for there, I didn't really think too hard about it.
Mm-hmm.
And mindset was I think silently confident. I had built
Mm-hmm.
ability. At the end of the day, it's are you at a certain ability level? And I thought I was. Whether a mock told me
Mm-hmm.
I was or not, I think I told myself I was. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think some of this is just a mental block as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, uh, did you know while giving the test that it was all going well? How well you're performing? What were you telling yourself?
Yeah, I think you told me this actually. You wrote, 7 things to think about during the exam or something, tips. And one of them, everyone should know this, is like, this is a block-based adaptive exam. You get,
Mm-hmm.
the first 3 questions wrong or whatever, they assume that you're not that good. They'll drop the entire level for you. So it
Mm-hmm.
is absolutely crucial to not make mistakes in bunches, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how do you do that is like rinse, repeat, flush. Whatever happened in the previous question does not affect the next question. So to answer your
Yeah.
question, I was not thinking about am I doing well or not. I was just
Mm-hmm.
forgetting and restarting, forgetting and
Mm-hmm.
restarting.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. And yeah,
Just
and then
focusing on the
suddenly,
question in front of you.
yeah, and then focusing on forgetting it, I guess. So
Mm-hmm.
when you go to the next one, and then yeah, I guess all of a sudden I finished the last section, whatever the analytical writing, and I saw that 770 jumped out. I was like, what? This is insane. I've never even dreamed of that. So yeah, yeah.
What was your reaction the moment you saw that score?
I mean, so I was like in an in-person setting. Everyone had computers. Like I remember this is what computer labs looked like back in school. You
Mm-hmm.
have a little cubicle. Everyone had like noise canceling headphones. So yeah, I don't think people could hear me, but there was definitely like a 7-year-old girl shriek that came out of me
You did
at the
that.
time. Yeah, yeah. And I even remember like the proctor was like, sit down. And then the proctor came because I didn't sit down. And then she looked at my screen. She was like, oh, I guess you can stand up then. So yeah.
Yeah. And Aditya, to be honest, I'm sure you deserved it all because I know the kind of things that you've given up for this. I know how fond you are of football and FIFA World Cup was going on. I remember you had this, I don't know if it was during the mock stage, a test readiness stage, it was semis, and there was this call that you and I had, and you said, Rashmi, you know what? I'm not going to watch this match. Please watch it on my behalf. You know,
Yeah,
for a
I
diehard
wanted you to make
football fan.
Messi to win. Yeah, yeah. And I guess you did your job, so I had to do mine.
Yeah, but honestly, uh, kudos to you to, decide on a goal and give it your all and not let any other distractions come in the way. And I'm really glad it all paid off in the end. I'm sure missing that semis was worth it.
Yeah, and by the way, I actually had tickets to go to Qatar in person. So it wasn't just missing watching it on TV. It was more
Hmm.
than that. But my parents were there, my college friends were there. They actually were together to watch. Um, so yeah, it's okay. Sometimes you have to give before you get. So the next World Cup's in the US, and you already know I'm gonna be at every game. So
Yeah, we'll see you in the stands
yeah, I'll try
these
to get
days.
on TV. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what a journey it has been. So, I know you have interviews lined up with top institutes. You just finished an interview with Berkeley's, and you have Kellogg's and UCLA lined up. So, first of all the very best from all of us for that.
Thank you.
So, what role did the 770 play in getting called into for these institutions?
I think it was everything. To me,
Mm-hmm.
my GPA wasn't great. I
Mm-hmm.
was perhaps on the lowest end of the number of years of work experience. I had zero people I've
Mm-hmm.
ever managed in my life. These are the kinds of,
Mm-hmm.
when you look at when you profile people, they're like, oh, GPA, GMAT, years of work X, number of people you managed.
Mm-hmm.
On all those fronts, I wasn't doing well. So this is the only star child I had in that sense. And that's why
Mm-hmm.
I think it was key to me. Not that it's make or break to everyone. Like I said, you could be good on
Mm-hmm.
a few of these dimensions and get in with, even sub 700, you can go to the best schools.
Mm-hmm.
But, I really think this was like an input gives you output thing. This is the only thing I had left that I could control completely. It was
Mm-hmm.
totally in my hands. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think it's important and it's in your hands. So
Mm-hmm.
that was it.
So wonderful. Good that, your dream schools are lined up. So how are you preparing for the interviews? If you can give teeny little bit insights into how you're preparing for the interviews now.
Yeah. So there's always a few questions you can count on coming. Three of them actually. Tell me about yourself. Why do you want an
Mm-hmm.
MBA? And why this school? So they typically will come right at the start. You'll have maybe 3 minutes per question. So a 30-minute interview, you can already know what the first 10, 12 is going to be like.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if you're the kind of person that wants to rehearse and practice and know how to do it, great. If you're the kind of person that writes bullet points and then kind of paraphrases or searches for the way to say it on the spot, that's how I do it, great. But I think that was the first thing. You do that prep. Um, Outside of that, there's questions that you call them star questions or whatever, like story
Mm-hmm.
questions. Tell me about a time when this happened, that happened. I think the way I looked at that is go back in your life and think about your big successes, failures, stories. I think
Mm-hmm.
essentially what you're looking for is like maximum coverage with your stories. So I had maybe four from work and two from my personal life. So whether
Mm-hmm.
you ask me about team collaboration, leadership, mentorship, success, failure, achievement, difficult conversation with someone, difficult conversation with the manager, feedback,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, like I was just saying that, okay, these six stories cover almost all of those. So kind of
Mm-hmm.
practicing in star format, those questions, plus the three sure shot ones. Yeah, I think that's about all the prep I'm doing.
Awesome. So as I said, from all of us out here, a big, big, big good luck to you for the interviews.
Thank you. Yeah, I have
So
UCLA tomorrow, so pretty
yeah,
stoked
I know.
about that. That's the alma
Yeah,
mater.
your
So
alma mater.
happy to go back if they'll take me.
Awesome. They'll be more than happy to have you, I'm sure. So, so Aditya, finally, you've made it. You've done that, been there, all that kind of things. So, do you have any tips that you want to share with our viewers today?
Yeah, I think let me try to say this short. Um, Firstly, this can get monotonous studying for the GMAT
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know, it is not exactly my idea of fun or a lot of people's idea of fun. But
Mm-hmm.
if there's a way you can find it, make it fun.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, like, doing better than I was yesterday or doing better than I was doing last week
Mm-hmm.
was fun. Like, improvement
Mm-hmm.
was fun. If you can see it as a game like that, I think of, individual sports like, I don't know, golf or gymnastics, where you're just playing against yourself, or who you were last
Mm-hmm.
week or last year. Look at it that way, and it'll get a lot less boring. And then the other
Mm-hmm.
thing is, like, lean on the resources you have. Like, there's hundreds and thousands of other kids doing this on, GMAT Club and forums, and there's a lot of, articles written on Reddit. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of noise as well, so be careful. You don't want to spend too much time on it, but it is nice to know what other people are thinking, and
Mm-hmm.
what's going through the head of other people. So yeah, I guess it's a lonely process, so make it fun and try to make it as, not collaborative, but as social as you possibly can.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So there's this one another thing that you did. You sort of prepared full time. You know, you made it happen in 2 months. So there are a lot of people out there who are doing it full time also. Like we started out by saying all kudos to people who are balancing their career and the prep. Even preparing full time is not easy. So do you have any tips out there for people who want to make it happen in a short period of time or are preparing full time for the GMAT?
Yeah, I think, going back to, you asked me what's the first thing I did after my mock. I took 750, score I wanted, to break down sectionals. So, break your overall goals into like smaller achievable tasks, and then work on one of them at each point of time. Don't, waver from, I'll do 4 hours of SC and then 3 hours of CR, and that's what my day is going to look like. I
Mm-hmm.
think, you know, or maybe this might just be personal to me, but having that one track mind that over the next 3 days, this is all I want, you know,
Mm-hmm.
maybe that mindset helped me stay in the game, stay disciplined. Another thing is, like, when you're doing this full time, like 9 to 9 or whatever, you are going to tire out, right? You're going to tire out not just overall and burn out, but even in a day. So don't do too
Mm-hmm.
many questions in a day. When you see, like, your level is just not what you're expecting, you're making 5 mistakes out of 10, you're used to making one, just take a break.
Mm-hmm.
Come back
Mm-hmm.
later, come back tomorrow. So yeah, I think those who do this full time, you just need to make sure that you're doing it full time, but at your best. And when you discover you're not at your
Mm-hmm.
best, then just let it go for a walk.
Yeah.
Come back again.
So it's okay to have mini setbacks, but take a break, come back all fresh, and then
Yeah.
make it count. Awesome. So wonderful. Thank you for your time and sharing all these thoughts with us. So now let's take questions from our audience here. Right? So let us look at this and let me look for the comments. Okay, a lot of compliments, a lot of congratulations, a lot of proud to you, a lot of you are a star. But
That's friends
okay,
and family, I can see that.
so we have from Isha. She has a question on how many hours a day in those 2 months and 2 days did you commit to studying? I don't,
Oh,
okay, so
she
I think
really
she
was
means
listening to me.
60
Yeah, yeah,
plus 2.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what she meant. Yeah, guys, I think I, on good days, was doing what, 8, 9 hours.
Mm-hmm,
On bad days, as low as 4, 6, maybe.
mm-hmm,
Um, I think that was the scale. And yeah, I think again, it's like, it's not a total number of hours thing. It's how good were you during those hours? How meticulous were you in those hours yourself? Like, you can just try to expose yourself to every question out there, but not review the questions you're getting wrong. And that's just time
mm-hmm.
wasted as well. So I think it's as important to study smart as it is to study hard. But yeah, I guess my answer was 4, 6 on the low end, 8, 9 on the high end.
Yeah. But make every hour and every second count is the
Mm-hmm.
underlying thing, right? Awesome. So Abhishek wants to ask, could you tell what resources did you use for quant?
Yeah, honestly, Abhishek, I'm not sure if my answer is valuable because I had 4 years of engineering and math as a starting point. So all I really used was the EGMAT videos themselves. However, I do think they are more than comprehensive. There's even this personalized, I forget what it's called, pace. Pace was this feature where you can basically just do a diagnostic per section, and it'll tell you, hey, these are the modules you should study, these are the modules you could probably skip. So I mean, long answer short, EGMAT alone was enough for me, and if used well, I think could be enough for you as well.
Awesome. So I think, Abhishek, that answers your question. And now we have Sandeep, who's asking, if I were to take a no, let's take Salvador first. Would love to have an idea or a snippet of the way you wrote the error log for SE.
I
So I
don't know if
think
I can screen share. Can I?
um, I'm not sure, but maybe you could explain the error log process. You could,
Actually,
Salvador, you could refer to Aditya's debrief, wherein he has shared the snippet of the error log that he maintained.
do you guys
That
see
would
it?
give you an insight. Yes, yes, I have shared that as my response to your debrief. So that is where I have shared a snapshot of how meticulous his error log was. So you can refer to that. But how he went about making it so meticulous, Aditya, I'm sure, can explain that here.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you guys see my screen, but after every question, I was saying something like, did not spot the error in the original sentence, that which
I
was
think,
relative pronoun modifier.
yep, here
And
it is.
yeah, so like, I don't know if you can see the level of detail, but I think these two columns, the comments and corrective actions, were key to it. The better you write your error log, the better review you do. Don't skimp on this. Sometimes it could be just dated at versus dated to be. My idiom was wrong. Sometimes I'm writing, I don't know. What is nice? Okay, it's themes XYZ provide some parallelism mistake. Basically, like really hone in on what you got wrong, and don't be afraid to spend time here. And like I told you, this is pretty comprehensive and error log. So yeah, hope that helped.
Yep, I'm sure it did. 99 percentile doesn't come easy, you know. So, Sandeep here is asking, if I were to take GMAT within a month, should I only practice OG questions?
Hard to say, but I think go build this process, whether you do it on OG or Scholaranium or just the practice files. It depends on wherever your starting point is. If you've already done that, then you can do OG only. If you haven't done that, then I would recommend just staying with the course itself. I think I barely did like 3% of the OG questions available to me and less than 20% of Scholaranium. So yeah, I don't think it's like a number of questions as much as it's a follow the course structure, follow the process, see where you're not following the process and work on that.
Yeah.
Sorry if that didn't answer your question with a number like you were hoping.
Yeah, it's not the number that counts, it's how effective you make whatever number you use that counts, right? Um, awesome. So, Wasim asks, if I give 6 months as a newcomer, can I score more than a 700?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, 6 months is good time. You could, section by section, conquer wherever you're weak. My advice to you, if you had 6 months, is like go, take a mock tomorrow, take it over the weekend, just see where you stand, and then slowly build your ability section by section. Wherever you're weakest, start there, do the whole course, practice questions, maintain the error log through and through. And then go see if you improved or not. And if you haven't, go back and do it again. Not the whole course, but keep trying more questions. Go hone in on certain. Like for
Yeah.
me, parallelism was a problem. Verb ing modifiers were a problem in general. So, once you do the whole course and don't reach the level you want, you'll know what sections are holding you back. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I would say
Yeah.
yeah, diagnosis and
Yeah.
prognosis. Yeah.
True, very true. So, Wasim, it's not where you're starting at, but how well you prepare that decides where you get to. So, no matter if you're starting at a 600, a 300, or a 400, you can get to that 700 plus. Um, so, Antonia asks, do you have a time strategy like skipping after X minutes, or if a question looks like X, If you did, could you elaborate on that or how you went over your pacing prep? Thanks.
Rashmi, please help me with the numbers here. It's been 2 months since I wrote the exam, but you told me exactly what these numbers were. It was around two
Yeah,
minutes, I believe. Yeah, you can take
for
this, I think.
SC. Yeah. So, Antonio, the general rule of thumb is you skip a question if you find it going nowhere. But other than that, if you are looking for a number to it, skip an SE question if you are beyond 2 minutes, skip a CR question if you're beyond 2.5 minutes, and a quant question if you're beyond 2.75 minutes. That's the ideal skipping strategy because every second that you save helps you with the subsequent questions. Okay, so I think that answers your question. And yeah, I'm sure Aditya used it too because, as he said, I had shared the skipping strategy with him before he took the marks and went to the test. Okay, Divya, you asked what was your accuracy in medium and difficult questions in the verbal sections. I think the ESR said it was you you got an you got a 85% accuracy in the first block, no mistakes in second and third, and 85 again in the last block. Do I remember right, Aditya?
Yeah, but I think we can answer this based on what we define verbal test readiness, or right? So we were saying
Mm-hmm.
80% easy and medium, and above 60% hard. And
Yes.
that's like 750 right there. So, 8 out of 10 medium quizzes you should be getting right, and more than half of hard questions.
Yeah. And of course, again, identify what are the areas that is there a pattern to the kind of mistakes that you're making? Are they coming from a particular topic, and fix that kind of a topic, right? So I don't think it's a linear variable, but the other aspects to it too. But if you just look at it in a broad way, yes, what Aditya said about around an 80% accuracy for medium questions and 60 plus for hard is good. Okay. Um, so Rahul asks, how can I improve my comprehension and verbal resources? Not how can I improve my comprehension and verbal resources I should use to help improve the comprehension, like novel, newspaper.
Oh, I see. Okay. I don't know if you are already on EGMAT. If you are, they have outside of reading comprehension, there's a separate course called Mastering Comprehension. Would definitely recommend that. That entire module is maybe 9-10 hours, but it goes into depth on how to read, like reading strategies. So essentially, I would watch the instructor, a great instructor. Shout out to Harsha, by the way. I would watch him like he doesn't understand everything in the first go as well. So I would see when is he going back and rereading, when is he not. And yeah, I think imbibing his process or just learning from it was valuable. That mastering comprehension course, yeah, I think is key to that comprehension style. And you mentioned novel, newspaper. I think, Rashmi, you also told me this, which was like, if you can just spend like 10-15 minutes a day reading, like, I don't know, Wall Street Journal or something like that,
Yeah.
is a very high level, good, I don't know, good writing style, good English. I would,
Yeah.
just get used to reading some of those passages, even if it's 10-15 minutes a day, pick topics you're interested in or pick topics you're not interested in. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think that
I
helped as
think
well.
pick topics that you're not interested in is the key.
Yeah.
Pick the kind of passages that you wouldn't want to read, and build the muzzle to read these kind of passages. And just to add to what Aditya said, the kind of newspapers or journals that use GMAT-like passages are the New Yorker, the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, the National Geographic, just to name a few. Okay. Uh, so, any recommended platform for quant practice? I think we've answered that already.
Yeah, but still, like, I think for me, it was EGMAT. I used the pace feature. I would do a diagnostic. I would see where my gaps were. Sometimes spend the whole time studying the module, or sometimes I would just skim a practice file. I think beyond that,
Mhm.
if you're looking for questions itself, OG is great. Of course, these are past questions, so it's as good as it gets and as close to the GMAT. I haven't used GMAT Club, so can't comment on that.
Got it. Yeah. So DJ asks, first follow the course and how and from where to practice more questions.
Rashmi, I think you'll be better for this one.
Yeah. So DJ, I think, as Aditya said, he did not practice a lot of questions. So it is not that, you require to practice a ton of questions. Wherever you are at, whatever question bank you have, if you make the most optimum use of each question that you answer, that should be more than enough. It is not the number that counts, but the quality of your review and the learning that you take out of every question that you answer that counts. Right? Okay, so I think we are good. CAG, you want to know how long you would need to take, you need to go from V35 to a V47. I think Aditya made it happen in about month and a half, if I have to just, you know, that is what you did. But on an average, it takes around 100 hours to do that. So, yeah, that is what it is. And I think we are good. I hope that answers your question, CAG. And so here we are. I think we've answered all your questions. We've had a wonderful session with Aditya. Thanks for sharing all your insights. I know it must not have been easy to take your time out today. One, you woke up early in the morning for this session. Two, you have an upcoming interview tomorrow. So thank you so much. Means a lot. Helps a lot of us out here. So thank you again.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course. And guys, like for me, this is I got a lot of support, not just from Rashmi, but others as well. So it's, my, I guess, way of giving back what I was given. So yeah, feel
Mhm.
free if you can find me on LinkedIn, reach out to me. Happy to chat with you guys one on one if there was something we didn't get to answer yet. Otherwise, yeah, download EGMAT and just take a mock right now. That's my advice.
That's mighty nice of you to offer, your support to all the GMAT aspirants out there. So you can find Aditya on LinkedIn, y'all. And I want to wrap this up by wishing you all the very best for the interview that is slated for tomorrow and also for the one that, when is the Kellogg's interview?
Next week. So still have more time for
Okay.
that. Yeah.
So all the very best for that. Go Rocket and keep us posted.
Yep.
So good luck.
Thank
See
you,
you there.
Ashmi. See you guys.
And yeah, bye bye, all of you. Thank you for being such a wonderful audience. And yeah, thank you so much.